So today's clip is going to be about how to make a wormery, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a really simple method that's going to cost you next to nothing, and it's a very highly effective method as well. So now another thing I wanted to tell you as well before we start is that in order to make good compost tea, which I showed you how to make in the last clip, you will need to have good worm compost. So that's the whole idea. So I'm going to go over there now and I'm going to show you how to go about it. Alright? So now the first thing you're going to need is one of these barrels. I bought this for €5 and you will see that I use these kind of a lot. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole into the bottom. Now make sure it's only one hole. You can see I have the worm composter on some barrels, and I'm doing that so I can put a kind of container under that to catch all the worm liquid. And I have this chicken wire. It's just basically an elaborate kind of sieve maybe, and that goes then basically in there, and that prevents any kind of gunk from blocking up the old hole, you know. Oh. Now make sure when you're putting it on the blocks that it's slightly leaning towards you, or the hole is actually leaning downhill, so that basically most of the liquid will go into your container. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to step it all down, flatten it a bit more. There we are. So now I have my drill here. I've changed the drill bit so it's a bit smaller this time. I'm going to leave a gap from the bottom again because of the sieve there, and I'm going to basically start now making the ventilation holes. It's kind of difficult when you're holding a camera. Hang on. So there we are, I have my holes made. So here I have my old worm composter, and it worked fine enough, but I had a problem with basically the drainage wasn't so good, so that's why I have this improved kind of system here now. So making worm compost is dead easy. All you're going to need is basically your compost bin. Then you add some bedding, which could be, you know, wetted down straw, hay. It could be cardboard or paper. Make sure that there's no colours in the paper or the cardboard. And then you would add your worms. You can find the worms basically in a compost pile, in a farmyard manure pile, or you can look on the stones for the soil worms. If you're going to use soil worms, make sure that you add some soil as well, because they need actually soil to digest their food. The best worms you can get are tiger worms, and they basically live in compost, in manure, and they have basically a stripe on them. Then what you would do after adding your straw or whatever you have as bedding, you would add your 20 or so or 50 or so worms to your mixture, to your bin, and then you would basically add a bit of maybe a handful of vegetable peelings. And the reason you only add a handful is because you only have 20 worms in there at present. So as soon as you have like 50,000 worms or something like that, they will eat literally a whole bucket of veggie peelings in no time whatsoever. So you want to make sure that you don't add things like too much citrus fruit, because they don't really like the acidic conditions, or they won't really gobble those things up. Don't be surprised to find other kind of creatures living in your compost bin. They're just eating up what the worms basically can't digest, which is actually a good thing. But then a very wonderful byproduct of your wormery is basically worm urine, and it's basically the worms produce quite a lot of urine, and it's full of nitrogen. So if you use that diluted to 10:1 to your to water, and then just basically add it around your plants, any kind of sick plants really benefit from this liquid feed. And even better, if you then have your worm compost, what you can make is the compost tea, which we discussed earlier.